Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of our travel podcast, Where to Next. So, for today's episode, I want you to imagine this. Imagine you're at your home and you're doing a little bit of renovation and you knock a wall down. But when you knock that wall down, you discover something super interesting. You discover a passage. And that passage is not just some small passage that leads to probably the basement of your house. The passage leads you to something that looks like an underground city. A city that's filled with rooms, a city that is filled with air chambers, maybe churches, maybe huge spaces, a city that even has been built underground to house animals. This seems like it is coming out of a movie, but no, this happened in Turkey. This happened in Turkey many, many years ago, where one individual discovered a city while just renovating his house. And that city was massive. And it left researchers, archaeologists, everyone puzzled as to who built this city, why was this city not discovered for such a long, long time, and finally, why was this city built? Like, why would people need such a big underground city that has passages, that has corridors, that has halls, that has rooms, everything under the ground? So, on today's episode of Where to Next, we are talking about underground cities, and we are going to talk about this underground city and many other underground cities that you can discover around the world. So, Sunila, what is this city that I'm talking about? And I mentioned Turkey, but tell us more about the city.
Neil, the city you're talking about is Derinkuyu, which is in Cappadocia.
Yeah.
So, very often in Cappadocia, you're looking at the skies, you're looking at these wonderful hot air balloons floating everywhere, the fairy chimneys, the landscape is so amazing. It's a place you can't forget if you've been there. Very often we forget to look beneath, like we forget to look underground. So, Derinkuyu is the place that you mentioned, and I think in around 1963, this man was renovating his house and he discovered an entire city below there. So sometimes I wonder how many more such hidden cities, hidden places are there in this world, right? And Derinkuyu actually at one point could take something like 20,000 inhabitants.
Yeah,
So
that's what
just
I also
imagine,
read.
like amazing, right?
And
How
then
it was built.
people didn't know at that time why it was built and all of that, but one story suggests that it was built to keep enemies away.
Yeah.
Second is that it was built in such a way that tunnels are very narrow, so it slows your enemy down. It was built in such a way where stone passages could be sealed shut easily. And in spite of it being underground, one of the cool things was that it had air chambers, which means like air could flow back and forth in a very easy strategy. But you told me that there is also a story of these underground cities being built probably because the earth went into an ice age. Was it this Turkish city or was it somewhere else?
It's where the country that we're discussing the maximum right now as we record this episode, and that is Iran. So in Iran, they believe that some 12,000 years ago, their god called Ahura Mazda, Zoroastrianism starts from Iran, and he said that look, they're going to be bad days, the days of Malkush. So it's like part legend, whatever, but I love legends and stories. I think you should just believe them a little bit and everything makes sense. So he said there's going to be an ice age. So make sure that you can protect yourself. And the best way to protect yourself is to dig underground and go underground and start building cities underground. And that's why you have a lot of these old underground cities. And actually, they say that scientifically, some 12,000 years ago, there was something called the young dryas or something. So, which was where the earth actually experienced conditions similar to the ice age again. So, they're like, probably this is what they spoke about. Maybe this coincides with the days of the Malkush, as it was called. Whether how much of it is true or not, we don't know. But they say that probably the whole thought of looking underground to build a city, to stay, came from there. And Neil, when we decided to do this episode, I started looking at how many more places and I was amazed. There are underground things all around the world, different facilities, different things that were built. And there seems to be one common factor all the time, which is protection. I think every time somebody looked at protection, you tended to go underground. So that's how it is. I mean, some are modern, some are old, and of course we'll talk about it as we go
So
ahead
let's
in the episode.
let's start talking about it, because
Mhm.
you mentioned that these cities were built for protection. As I went into down this rabbit hole, I found that cities were not only built for protection for
Yes.
many other reasons.
Hmm.
So this story about Turkey and this story about Iran kind of tell you that these underground cities don't only exist in these two places, but they exist everywhere.
Yeah.
So what is one city that you found? And what we'll do is we'll just go,
Yeah.
you telling me about one city, I tell you about one city. So what was one such city that came on your list that is an underground city, and that if you're traveling to this place, you could probably go and visit it?
So I'll tell you about a place that I am going to next month.
Okay.
Where I've been to multiple number of times, which is Australia. Within South Australia, near Adelaide, a little of a distance away, is Coober Pedy, the town of Coober Pedy.
Yes.
And people are still living underground out there. And these are, well, one of the things was protection. Now, why do you need protection? When you're mining, and there was opal mining happening out here.
Oh, opal mining. I
Yeah.
thought it was coal mining. But
It was
okay.
opal mining. And there's one more place in New South Wales, White Cliffs, where also they were doing opal mining. And in White Cliffs, there is actually an underground motel with 30 rooms. So if
Okay.
you want to experience something different, you can head there. Of course, that would be like really going there on purpose. But Coober Pedy, you can definitely do when you're in Adelaide, or you're going to Ayers Rock, you're doing a different
I would not say you can
program.
definitely do it. It is,
I mean, you have to choose to do
many
it.
hundred kilometers away
Yeah.
from. I think it's closer to Alice Springs than Adelaide.
Correct.
I
So
think, yeah.
what I meant was that when you're building a program
Yeah.
of South Australia and Northern Territory, and say you're doing Adelaide with Alice Springs and then going ahead to Ayers Rock, it kind of fits in on the way. So that's definitely something to consider. Now, when people started doing opal mining, and they felt that it's too hot. Like Australia, the center can get really hot, and they wanted to find a way to escape that. So what do? They start digging underground, and they created this whole city there. They call the dugout. So
Yeah.
you're living in the dugout. And I'm actually amazed that people are still doing that. Apparently, there are some really fancy homes even underground. Now, a lot of artists are also living out there, because I guess you get creative expression when you're in a different zone. Like, even actually think of it, when you're meditating, you go into this cave, or you go into a place where there are no other distractions. So I guess that, kind of helps all of that. So yeah, Coober Pedy was on my list.
So
have you seen it? You've lived in Australia,
no,
but you didn't have a chance.
I did not want to make that trek. I think it's 400 kilometers
Yeah,
or
it's
something
far.
from Adelaide.
If you're
but
enjoying
it's worth
self-driving,
checking out
you
if you're
can.
trying to go to Australia
Yeah.
a third time or a fourth time.
Definitely.
Definitely. So this was again a story because it gets too hot, right? In
Yeah.
Coober Pedy, I think temperatures get to 45 degrees or 50 degrees, and that's why people built.
It's like
So
natural air
instead of
conditioning.
protection, you're kind
Yeah.
of doing it because of the climate,
Yes.
right? One
But
reason.
it's protection from the climate.
Yeah, I
in that
guess, yeah.
sense.
One
Yeah.
reason I came across a city was to protect themselves, because there was a danger. There was a danger of a nuclear war.
Okay.
And in China, during the 60s and the 70s, it was the time of the Cold War, and the Chinese were very scared that there could be a nuclear war that could take place. And that is why they built a city called Dixia Cheng, right? And this was kind of like a nuclear shelter that it was built. It had schools, hospitals, everything built. And it was built to house about 10 lakh people, right? So it was built in such a massive scale, as everything China builds, that even in the 70s, they wanted this city to be built. Can you go there today? I don't know, probably not. But that was also another reason I came across this thing. And speaking of that, right, like we were talking about the Mumbai Metro right now. When they were building the Mumbai Metro, they were doing it all underground, and they came across many places where they found landmines that were like active, missiles that were active. They found human remains and all of that. So when you start digging underground, you can probably find things that you wouldn't come across. But what is another place that you can actually go to? Coober Pedy was one, or the place in New South Wales near Sydney. But maybe in Europe, what is something?
Definitely. And you mentioned human remains, so I'll take that cue and go to my next city.
Okay.
Think of Europe and think of the most romantic city that everybody can
Paris?
think of. Paris,
Yeah.
right? And when we are visiting Paris, we look at the Opera House, we look at the Eiffel Tower. You want your evenings by the Seine, you want to cruise the Seine, you do all these beautiful romantic things. You have cafes, creperies, and all of that, and you say, "Wow, I've seen Paris." But unless you go underground, you really have not seen Paris, because in Paris are the catacombs.
Okay.
And I think, what happened was that there was a lot of health issues, and people were like wondering, what do we do with so many things, like
Yeah.
so many remains, human remains. So there were these limestone quarries within
Okay.
Paris, like they were excavating limestones and all of that, and they were left with empty spaces below the ground. So what they started doing was they took in all the bones of and the skulls of people, and about 6 million Parisians are actually buried underground. Like the bones are neatly arranged in the catacombs.
I have read that this is very creepy when you're
Yeah.
doing. There are some haunted walks that you can do
Yeah.
underground or something like that.
I mean, imagine a ghost walk you do on ground, but going
Yeah.
underground and doing it is even better, right?
Yeah.
Like it would really give you that feeling, because it's dark, and then you're not just walking in a tunnel, you're
Yeah.
walking in a tunnel lined with bones, lined with skulls. So definitely, maybe not one for the children, but yeah, if you want to show them how and what, that's definitely something to do. So they had a lot of public health challenges, and Paris has faced that again and again. We've seen in history. That's why in the late 18th century, they took this decision and they kind of moved all the remains. So you can do, there are regular tours. It's all quite okay. You can go and visit. You can book these tours, and with a guide, you're walking through and they take you to certain points. And with the stories that are built, it's a good thing to go and see. It's interesting.
Connected to that, if you really think about it, London, London Underground,
Yeah.
right? I mean, the London Underground tube is one of the oldest train systems
Yeah.
in the world. But connected to that are many old World War II war chambers. The government ran many secret programs
Yeah.
during that time. So when you go to London, you have all of these heritage walks,
Yeah.
haunted walks, and you can really go and check out these chambers and tunnels that you will find in London. So that was one place that came
Neil,
to
if you're
mind.
talking of London, you must mention the Churchill War Rooms.
What is that?
So, near Whitehall, Winston Churchill during the Second World War, the same thing, what you're saying, for protection and for planning, they actually dug underground and they were planning all the war strategies and how and what. So, Churchill spent a lot of time out there, and the Churchill War Rooms, for anyone interested in history, definitely you should not miss it. You can see the bedrooms there, you can see the bunkers, you can even see the desks and how they. So if you've seen the movie on Churchill, The Dark Hour, I think it was called, or something like that, they do show a part of it. So at Whitehall, just go to Whitehall and go down, and you can see the Churchill war rooms out there, even preserved today. So it's an interesting peek into history as to how during World War II the plans were hatched to save the world and all of that, and Churchill being the leader he was, I think you can feel his presence out there.
Yeah.
Just planning the strategies. So definitely should be on
Would
your
you say
list.
that, see, the pyramids, right, in Egypt are like above ground, but the way they have been designed, there are many underground tunnels and burial chambers and all of that. So those could be underground cities too. But I remember you telling me about you and Sarah being in Budapest, Prague, right? And something related to underground cities. What was that?
I think the best kept secret of Prague is actually underground. So, we were walking and we were at the astronomical clock. So, the center of Prague, in a way, for the touristic center, let's see, is the square where you have the astronomical clock, you have these cafes, and you have all the other, buildings and monuments. So, we took a private guide, we went through, and then we were tired and we said we want a coffee. And I wanted to taste a local Prague delicacy that's called a kolache. A kolache is like a tart that they make. They started with savory, there's also sweet and all of that. And I wanted Sarah to try that. So I told the guy, take me to a really special place to try this kolache. And she said, come here. And we were right at the clock. So sometimes when you're at these crowded places, tourist friendly places or most popular, the crowds can get to you, right? And you want to just escape it all. And I said, I want to relax for some time. And it started raining.
Yeah.
So when it's raining, I said, now what do we do? And she said, don't worry, just come with me. So just opposite the clock, there was this place called Cafe 420.
Mm-hmm.
420 has nothing to do with 420 as we know
Yeah,
it, how we would use. It's the dialing code of Prague.
Mm-hmm.
So Cafe 420, and there are actually steps going down. So we went down the steps, and there's this nice cafe, beautiful cafe, and they had the best kolache and the best cafe. And we sat there, I think, for till the rain stopped, and we had an amazing time. And then the guide told me the story that these were all cellars that were built to store beer and wine, and Prague has the history. So at when the kings and the royalty and all of those people were living, entire Prague has a lot of these cellar cafes and cellar restaurants. So next time you're in Prague, don't just look on ground, but start looking underground for some of the best food that you can have. And it's beautiful. The atmosphere was nice. It wasn't like, okay, it's dark, but it kind of calms you down. It's quiet. It's nice. It's just the right temperature. And with some nice food and amazing drinks, I think that was very enjoyable, and it's a memory that stays with us even today. Like,
I guess you made a statement right now that next time you're in Prague, don't just look at what's above the ground, but kind of what's beneath the ground also. I often say that to anyone who goes to Orchard Road, and there is a shopping mall called Ion Orchard, right? And one of the cool things about Orchard Road in Singapore is that you can see all of these shopping complexes, Ion, Takashimaya, Paragon, all of them, right?
Yeah.
But what people don't realize is you could go into the shopping mall, you could go to the shops and all that. But what people don't realize is Singapore has built Orchard Road in a way where it goes 4 levels beneath. And the actual shopping mall, the cool stuff shopping really happens down there. So if you want some of the delicacies of Singapore, you'll find them there. I really like getting sauces back. You'll find stores that are there. So, and it's connected to the MRT. So there are many modern underground cities that also have been built. And I think the Orchard Road underground city is definitely one of them. You mentioned Helsinki also. What was the Helsinki underground city that you read about?
Helsinki is really special, or I would say Finland is really special because it's very futuristic and it's, involving the people. And I think it's just simply amazing. So I was reading about it, and now I want to go back to Finland and go underground and see what lies beneath. But they actually have data centers, Neil. They have prepared for the future. So they have built more than 50,000 shelters across, and the system is so transparent. Like, we know that Finland is one of the happiest places on earth, right? And one of the happiest countries where you could live. And I think it's just true in everything they do. It reflects in that. Because here, it's completely transparent. The public knows where these shelters are. The population knows. So if they want, they can use it. And not only that, they are actually using it today. So you could go 30 meters below the bedrock and go swimming today.
Oh, wow.
They have swimming pools, they have gymnasiums, they have a motor racing, like a go-karting track that you could use. The Olympic Stadium also has a lot of underground data centers built for people, and people are using this on a regular basis. I think it's the best example of public, government partnership, and to know and to use that, know that this is built for us. But they said, since we built the shelters, why just leave them like that? Let's start using them. And I read a few articles, and it said that whoever goes there, they've realized that it's well lit, there is good air, and it's actually nicer and quieter, and they can get a lot of things done. We go to Finland to see the northern lights. You go in winters, and the winters can be really harsh. But once you go down there, the temperature is controlled. So you can actually have a great life all through winter and not really miss out on all these activities. In fact, one comment was really funny, and they said, we seem to have some of the best music bands like punk and metal, because they can go and practice in these places which become soundproof. There's no disturbance to people above. And they are rehearsal rooms here, and they are cheap to use. So the music scene in Finland is also getting really stronger because of this.
So it's not only a summer destination, then you could probably go there in the winters also.
We do go in the winters anyways to see the northern lights, but we are only looking up at the sky. We can
So
actually
generally,
go
you
down
don't
there and
spend enough
enjoy
time in
this.
Helsinki. You just kind
Yeah.
of jet off
Sometimes
somewhere.
we even skip Helsinki and
Yeah.
you just go from, say, Frankfurt straight to Tromsø,
Yeah.
just do the northern bit and go. I think it's worth coming down there to the capital.
Worth it. Anything else in Europe? Any underground city
You know,
in Europe?
we spoke of Paris. Another place in Europe that has to come to mind is also a place that I really enjoyed a lot with my friends, and that's Budapest.
Okay.
Because in Budapest, we know that it's known for its thermal waters. The spring water there itself is warm and healing. And when Budapest was actually, it's two twin cities, right? Buda and Pest, two cities, and there was one more city, Obuda, where it
Yeah.
started. So it's actually three cities. Now, on the Buda part, which is the castle part of it, the castle hill, beneath that are layers and layers of underground cave system, which was started because of the thermal waters. And when the Romans came there, the Romans loved their Roman baths, right? So that is how bathing, and they realized that the water is not only warm, but it's also medicinal, it is healing, and the whole bathing culture started. So the one of the reasons that you can go in and enjoy the public baths even today, the Sechini public baths and the other baths, Gellert public baths, is because of what lies below the earth's surface, and that is the warm spring water, the mineral water which is coming, and you have this whole network of the thermal baths which has created this cave system below, and you can actually go and see it too. So Budapest is also something in Europe that you should go in and see. There are other places. There are catacombs in Naples. I mean, the list is endless about
Yeah, that's what I
all
was going to
these
say.
things.
Every country will have an underground city in Europe because it was built for protection. It
Yeah.
was built probably for survival. It was built during the world wars, probably. Who knows? But if you had to look at North America, you mentioned that there were a couple on your list,
Yeah.
couple cities in North America. Which ones are they?
You mentioned shopping in Singapore, and one of the places I enjoyed shopping underground because it was so cold and the country is so cold is Canada. So in Montreal, they actually have this system called RESO. So it's this 32 kilometers of underground tunnels which are built and linked to each other. So you could get your 10,000 steps done easily
Yeah.
anywhere you go, even if it is cold, if it is raining, because Canada is a cold country. And yeah, even like again, protection from the winter, and nothing to, you don't have to stop life. I think that's the best part about these underground cities, that life goes on. You don't have to stop because of the weather or something else. And honestly, the shops were amazing down there. Like, this was of course long back, so I'm sure they've only gotten better now. And the next time you're doing Canada, you're visiting Canada and you are on the East Coast, then in Montreal, definitely go and experience the Rezo underground system of shopping. So
What
that
is like, is it's like just a specific system, or
it's
called?
the tunnels, and along the tunnels, they've just dug tunnels and put the whole shopping malls out there. So you can eat, you can drink, you can shop. All the brands that you know are all out there. So enjoy shopping underground.
Of all of these cities that we've discussed, right? What is one place that you've already been to and you've experienced? Like, I've gone to Singapore Orchard Road. And what is one thing that you feel like going to right now?
I'm going to start with the place I feel like going to, because I know I'm going there hopefully in August, and this is Seattle. So the story of Seattle is really interesting because it's a little different from everything else that we've spoken about. And when Seattle started being developed, it was developed on marshy land. So they had a lot of floods and other, all these issues that kept coming up, because with the floods, the water would come in and life would be disrupted. And then they had the Great Fire in 1889 or something, I think, if I'm not wrong. They had this huge Great Fire that destroyed the city. So they said, now we have a great chance to rebuild the city and make it the city it is, like the city of Amazon, the city of the Space Needle. So they built the city on the existing city. And they said, this is the best chance to overcome this problem of a marshy land and the floods coming in. So the city after the Great Fire was built on the remains of the city that already existed. So there is this whole underground city, and you can actually take a tour and go and see that.
Speaking of devastation, I think Hiroshima also comes in that bracket, where it is said that they built an underground city over there just after all of the devastation that was caused by the atomic bomb, right? Now, you mentioned that Seattle is probably a place that you want to go to. Which were some of the cities that you went to, underground cities? See, not every underground city is worth visiting, right?
Yeah.
You might go to this nuclear shelter in China and not find anything.
True.
So, what were some of the ones that kind of left a mark with you? And I mean, I have finished my list, but did we miss out on any city?
Neil, you know, honestly, there are so many more, but to mention a few, well, I've been to Paris. I have Prague, we already mentioned. I've
Yeah.
seen that in London, even in Switzerland, actually. Like, if you are at the stations in Switzerland, the train stations, just go down and there are huge shopping networks in Zurich, even in Lucerne that we saw. There are this whole system of networks and underground shopping. Like, when you take the trains, you will see them that they are there. So definitely those are a few places I've been to. In the US, we spoke of Seattle. I want to mention one more city, which is Kansas City in Missouri, because it's crazy. It's called the Subtropolis, and it's this huge system where, again, similar to Helsinki, people actually live their lives there. So, you know, it's a nice functioning system with entertainment centers, with different things that you can go in and have a great time out there. Also, what is really interesting out there is they have something called the Groundhog Run,
Okay.
which is a marathon that is run underground. It's completely underground. And they say that there's enough air for everyone and that how comfortable it is because you don't have to be bothered about the sun or the rain, come sun, you can still do it. 5K, 10K, you can run whatever you want. And I think the next one is in 27, if I'm not wrong. So next year should be the next run that is there.
You know, you mentioned that there's enough air for everyone, and that's what makes the one that we started off with, right? Those cities in Iran and Turkey, which were built thousands of years ago,
Yeah.
for them to have thought of this, because when you're underground, it can be claustrophobic. And one of the experiences that they talk about is that you go to one of these underground cities and you go during the day with torchlights and all of that. But if you switch off the torchlight, it is pitch dark. You can't even see anything that is a centimeter from your eyes, right?
Yeah.
To be in that, if you have claustrophobia, you would not be able to live there. You won't be able to survive there. So thousands of years ago, these cities were built, and the science or the physics of it for someone to imagine is just pretty cool. But I think there's a city in Poland also that you had mentioned when we were discussing. Which one is that?
So it's an underground mine, and I never get this right, the pronunciation. So bear with me, but I think it's called Wieliczka Salt Mine.
Oh, this is that massive one,
Massive,
right?
huge
Yeah,
salt mine. So again, that is on my list to visit. I think, you know, this whole actually, when I started checking all the underground systems and the cities, and I was writing an article on this, and why it came to my mind was I was once in London, and I'll come back to Poland, but I was in London and I was checking into the Radisson Hotel, which is just off Oxford Street, like at Marble Arch. So you're right in the heart of the city center, exactly the place I wanted to be. But Neil, that's another thing. I had booked a single room. Now, when you book a single room, the rooms in Europe are usually smaller than your double room. So you have to book a single room for double occupancy.
A single room for double occupancy. That's
this
a good
was
tip.
a lesson I learned long back. And when I went in, you know, I took the keys and I said, okay, which floor? And it was actually -1. So I was like, okay, what's happening? Of course, we know that in London there are a lot of these, you know, homes that are built under the below the level. So I see them, but I didn't want to stay in one. So I was a little disappointed that why would I want to stay below the ground? But it wasn't so bad at the end of the day. However, it got me thinking that why do people live underground? And that's how I started thinking of this topic, that who goes underground? But apparently a lot of people do. And we mentioned Cooper Pedy, and people are still living in those dugouts. So obviously there's a good reason.
Yeah.
So it changed my mind when I started reading and researching all of this. I think I have a list of places that I want to go and see underground, and Poland definitely is one of them. So this salt mine, I think it's called, so mining for salt is common in Austria and Poland because it was all submerged, and then when the mountains rose up, you could get salt out of the mountains, right?
Yeah.
And people here, when they were building these mines, they didn't just build the mine, but they created one of the most beautiful mines. So there are chandeliers carved out of salt.
Oh, wow.
There are chapels, there are
there's a
other
cathedral
things.
or chapel.
Correct. So
in
this
there.
is the place that you would go to, the Wieliczka Salt Mine. I hope the pronunciation's right. I don't know. It's called the Saint Kinga's Chapel, and you can actually go and see that how much beauty a human can create as well if you really put your mind to it. So that's definitely one place which is specific sightseeing to go underground and see it.
Awesome. So, you know what? Let's end the episode on
The
this note,
yeah.
because we've discussed many underground cities. But I'd like to ask our listeners, is there any city, maybe in India or around the world, that we kind of missed out on? Because we love to hear about it, because this community that we've created through our podcast only extends when you also contribute with your comments on this YouTube channel. So thank you for tuning in to this episode. This was Underground Cities from all around the world. Until next time, have a great one. And as we always say, keep celebrating life. Bye.
See you.